down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
You guys want audio? You really want audio? You got audio. Now you can hear me. So, should we go back? Should we try that again? Let's pretend we're starting over. Thanks for joining me for another live episode of TogChat. I'm your host, Joe Edelman. And as always, my mission is to help photographers like you to develop a more solid understanding of the hows and whys behind great photographs. So, as always, gang, now that you've got that sound in, please do me a favor, make sure give me a heads up here that actually you've got sound. You should be able to hear me now, gang. All right, we're hearing, I'm getting messages that we've got sound now, so we should be good. All right, cool. So, listen, I apologize for that little mix-up. Sound is back. I'm back. It's Tuesday night. Things are like upside down. It is what it is. Why are we doing this on a Tuesday night? Because tomorrow night, I'll be in the Big Apple, New York City for Photo Plus Expo. I'm going to be there for the next 4 days. The show runs Thursday through Saturday, so hopefully some of you are going to make it. If you are, make sure that you stop by the Olympus booth. Say hi. I would love to see you. I'll be presenting 3 times on the Olympus stage. Thursday, 3:30. Friday, 1:30. Saturday, 10:30. Commit that schedule to memory. And then pretty much at the top of every hour, I will be in the Olympus Portrait Experience, giving you little portrait tips, helping you out with different portrait ideas, and that will have live models the entire time. It's going to be a lot of fun. And on Friday morning, I'm doing a street fashion photo walk from 9 to 11. So hope to see some of you there. Looking forward to meeting you. Make sure you stop by. We'll do our selfies, all that cool stuff. All right? So gang, listen, my topic for tonight came about while I was going through the beginning part of my week and stressing about the presentation that I'm about to do in New York. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, like, stressing, he does this stuff all the time, why would you stress? Well, you know, not that I'm asking for any sympathy, but basically, when you get up on a stage in front of a large group of people at a photography event where there's a lot of really amazing photographers, you don't want to screw up, right? You want to have stuff look good. Now, I do things a little bit different. If you saw my talk at WPPI, or if you've seen the video of my talk at WPPI, you know, just like I do on YouTube, I'm going to walk people through every step of how I'm doing my shots. So they're going to see my test shots. They're going to see any mistakes that happen, but we are going to solve problems together, and we are going to put those shots together and come up with a finished shot. So now, how does my prep that I go through for this show, or any show for that matter, help you as a photographer? Well, it's really kind of the moral. So for those of you that are coming to Photo Plus, you're going to be able to sit down at the Olympus booth at one of those 3 times and see me get up on the stage and for 40 minutes do a presentation about fashion portraiture and how you can do it with simple lighting. I'll only be using 2 lights for the demo and 1 shoot-through umbrella. That's it for the modifiers. Oh, and a reflector, but that's it for modifiers. We'll be using some gels for this talk. We're going to do some other cool prop things and that, but basically, you're going to see me get up there and go through this presentation. So what people don't see when they come to that show is that I spent 2 days this week. Here in the studio, I had Lola set up behind me. Right now, it's all bags packed, ready to go, okay? But I had Lola set up, and basically I was going through my shot sequence of ideas, figuring out what's gonna work, what's not gonna work, what will be easy to replicate on stage, because keep in mind, on stage, there's stage lights, there's just all kind of chaos. Plus, the stage is very narrow. The Olympus stage is only about 5 feet deep, and it's probably about 20 to 25 feet long, probably actually 20 feet long. And it's got angled walls on the end. So, instead of it like squaring off, the wall's like on an angle, which is really rough. The only good part is it's all gray. So this is all information that I know before I get there. So it's important to have that in mind. In other words, that would be kind of the equivalent of location scouting. But being able to work through a set of shots, a set of ideas that I know that I can step onto that stage and not only replicate those ideas, but do them in a way that I can teach a lesson, that I can provide people that are there at the show with information to take home and put to use. Now, how does that translate to you if you're not going to go and step on a stage and speak? Well, it translates really to every photo shoot that you do. And this is something that I think gets overlooked, especially in the early part of the learning curve, where it's really the most crucial. So sure, if I got hired Monday when I come back from Photo Plus to go and shoot a corporate portrait here in Allentown, Pennsylvania, I'm probably not going to do any practicing at all. I'm going to pack up some gear and I'm going to go and, deal with whatever I find when I get there. I've been doing this for a long time. As a new photographer, I find that one of the things that isn't done enough is simply practice. Now, I don't mean the usual practice to get better with your camera. I mean practice for the gig. So I had somebody ask me in my questions for this week to share a little bit of my prep info. How do I prep for a shoot? And this is a piece of prep that never gets talked about. But when you are going to go do a shoot that you're not sure about, when you are going to go do a shoot in a location maybe that you've never been before or you're not familiar with, if you're doing a shoot and you're nervous, simply because maybe it's the biggest job you've ever done, maybe it's the first time you've ever done this kind of shoot, maybe it's a new subject and you're excited about working with that subject, do a practice run. Now, depending on the circumstances, there are going to be varying degrees of practice that you can put into place, right? So I mentioned going and doing a corporate portrait. So let's say you're going to go and shoot in somebody's office and you're not sure about the size and the space you're going to have. So at a minimum, drive there in advance. It's worth taking the time to see the space that you're going to work in. If it's somebody's office, you're not going to be able to set up and do a test, a practice shoot and that kind of stuff. But you want to make sure that the gear that you are planning to take in is going to fit and you're going to be able to work the way you want to work. That also allows you to see how high are the ceilings, what color are the walls, how close are the walls going to be to your lights, are the walls going to kick back any color from your lights, etc. Then you can go home, in your living room, in your kitchen, in your garage, you can set up your lighting with your mannequin, whatever his or her name may be, and you can practice the lighting that you want to do. And when you're early in this process and you're still a little bit nervous about your lighting and you're still a little bit unsure about your system, what I highly encourage you to do is something that you probably saw done when you were in grade school, especially if you're here in the US. I can't speak for countries around the world, but if you were here in the US, every fall in grade school, there was picture day. Your parents dressed you up in your worst sweaters. You went to school and you had to get your picture taken. And we all hated it because we all looked cheesy and stiff in the pictures. Remember, because the photographer would sit us on a box and he'd turn us this way and he'd tell us to sit up really straight and he'd make us tilt our heads and then he'd say cheese and we'd go cheese and it looked horrible. My mother always put me in these unbelievable sweaters to go get my picture done. It's just horrible. But if you paid attention, really paid attention, which why would any of us pay attention to this, right? But if you did, and if you ever saw one of those photographers come in and set up, what you would have seen when they unpacked their gear and set up their light stands is that they did one of two things. They either used an actual tape measure or the light stands had strings attached to them. And what they would do is they would set down the box where the subject's going to sit, and they would then take the string, stretch it out, boom, and that's where the light stand goes. And then they would take another string in that light stand, stretch it out so that it was the proper distance from the camera. Now, they knew, without a light meter, because remember, this was back in the film days, They knew that with that light set at the proper power at that distance from those strings, and with the next light being the fill light set at the proper power and the proper distance from its strings, that they could shoot that portrait at f8 or f5.6, and it was going to be properly exposed. No meter reading, no guesswork. This was all predetermined back at headquarters, right? So basically, they were able to walk into that situation and know that they were going to have good light, know that they were going to have the proper exposure, the proper depth of field, all the things they needed to make sure that those images were going to turn out the way they wanted. It's a great lesson that we all should learn. I'll be the first to admit, when I was young, I didn't follow that lesson. I did watch one of those photographers set up once, because at the school I was in 6th grade, they had the safety patrol, and I was the captain of the safety patrol. But they had us go out and help the photographer unload his gear, and then we were kind of his assistants while he was setting up. Now, I wasn't quite into photography yet, but I watched the guy do the string thing, and sadly, when I really got into photography, I never considered that as an option. But it's a great option. I talk to so many photographers now that I'm teaching and doing YouTube that they get an opportunity to go and photograph somebody and they're worried. In fact, they're practically panic-stricken. Like, oh my God, what if I mess up? I don't want to embarrass myself. I need this to be really good. And then the day comes for that shoot and they're basically a big ball of nerves. And everything does go sideways. So one of the best things you can do, and you guys hear me talk about all the time, the reason why you do practice is so that you can pay attention to your subject. Well, practice is great with your camera and practice is great with lighting, but if you're still not that confident, working out a measurement system, in other words, doing it at home, testing everything, and then going ahead and setting it up, essentially replicating it on location, allows you to start out into your shoot, even if you're going to work with a model where you're going to try multiple different lighting setups, right? It allows you to start out knowing that your first setup is going to work. You know what it's going to give you because you've already tested it with your mannequin or, with a spouse, friend, whomever. But you know that basically you've just gone and you've replicated and it's going to work. It allows you to get into the shoot with some confidence. So, I talk a lot about practice with your camera, take lots of pictures, but this is a piece of practice that kind of gets left out. And from the standpoint of prep, because lately a lot of people have been asking me about prep, and I'm working on an ebook that goes through my prep processes for my various types of shoots, whether it be a portrait, whether it be a modeling portfolio, whether it be one of my crazy fashion portrait shoots. I'm going to outline that. It will be available in the next couple of months. But the point is, one of the biggest aspects of that is not knowing all these little shortcuts that help you, not knowing all of Joe's little tricks. One of the biggest aspects is actually set it up in advance and try it. Now, the downside to this, of course, the downside is it requires effort. It takes some extra time. You've actually got to put in the effort to go ahead and set that up, think through what you're going to do, try it out, take some notes, and then go and do it. So my presentation that I'm going to do in New York, it's not scripted. I do have an outline. In the course of 30 minutes, but the programs that we're giving, they have to be between 30 and 40 minutes max on the long end. You can't really show off a lot of different shots in 30 to 40 minutes. It goes by really pretty quick. So I've got 11 different shot ideas. There's no way I'll get through 11. If I get through 5 in one presentation, that will be great. So just like I did in Las Vegas at WPPI, I talk 3 times. Each time it will be a little bit different because I'll mix it up. And that way, hopefully some people will come back and they'll watch it a second time because they will see some different things, okay? But putting in that extra effort, I'm able to get up on the stage and I don't have to be thinking while I'm in front of a large group of people standing on a stage trying to teach. I don't have to be thinking about, well, what should I do next? Or how should I set up this light? Or what kind of lighting ratio will be good? Or what will happen if I add a blue gel to this? I already know. So that way, all of my attention is focused on the audience who I'm speaking to and my subject because I will have a live model there. So my talk is not scripted. In fact, I haven't written it. Like I said, I have a bullet point outline of the shots that I'm going to do. I have some bullet points of things that I want to make sure that I talk about and discuss. But the rest of it is basically going to be walking people through the shots that I'm doing, the choices that I'm making, why I make those choices, how I set up the shot. So the moral for you folks is practice is important, but actually practice the shots that you want to do beforehand, especially when you're just getting started, you're trying to build up that confidence level. I highly recommend it. It makes a huge difference in your confidence level and your subject's confidence level when you're able to just basically roll into that shoot. There's no fumbling, there's no bumbling, there's no guesswork. Everything is just clicking, everybody's happy. Because remember, and I've talked about this before, when you have a subject in front of your camera, they don't want to hear, oh, that looks great. Oh my God, that's awesome. Oh, baby, that's hot. That is not what your subject wants to hear. What your subject wants to hear is click, 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 click. That's what the subject wants to hear. And whatever you do, don't go into a shoot and be that photographer that takes the test shot, looks at the camera, and is like, oh crap. Now you've just lost your subject completely. And by the way, that oh crap, you don't have to say it. If your body language reflects it, trust me, your subject knows. So you want to be able to get started easily, cleanly, on a mission. And obviously, of course, you're going to experiment later. You're going to try things you haven't done before, even on that corporate job. If you get the job done in a decent time, you should expand on that. Shoot a little bit more. Try a couple other things. Absolutely. That's how you improve. That's how you grow. So my thoughts for you for how you can use the concept of show prep to actually help you do shoot prep. Okay? All right, gang. So also, just a little heads up. There's a new video. Hey, D-Mac, how you doing? And by the way, I need to say hi to everybody. James is here. Paul's here. Bennett, Bob, Jeff, Chaz is here. Martin, Brent, Howard, all you guys, please, if you haven't already, Jason's here. Duke, check in. Let me know you're here. Let me know where you're saying hello from. I apologize. I got all out of whack in the beginning because we didn't have sound. You gotta hate when that happens, right? So anyway, I wanted to let you guys know there's a new video up this week, or I should say, it went up last week. So this is great. Video's got like almost 20,000 views, and of course the trolls came out on this one. You gotta love the YouTube trolls. It's basically why I shot an assignment as JPEGs with the Olympus Pen EP-L9. So obviously the trolls, it's a commercial. So yeah, it's a commercial. I talk about that camera, but I also give you a lot of value in terms of how I prepped that shoot for those of you that are asking about prep. I also gave you information about the choices I made, why I made those choices, why I shot JPEG, how I shot JPEG. So yeah, you know, if you're a Sony, a Canon, Nikon user, then ignore the Olympus stuff. That's absolutely fine. There's good information there. But anyway, check that one out. It's a recent shoot that I did. And really the point is the reason why I wanted to do that video, I wasn't paid to do the video. Olympus didn't pay me to do it. They paid me to go do that shoot. It was an advertising campaign that had nothing to do with my video. I wanted to do the video to make the point that if you do the right things with your camera, and it doesn't have to be the most expensive camera with the most dynamic range and the biggest sensor and the most megapixels, if you do the right things with your camera, you can take great shots as JPEGs. And I'm not recommending that you switch and start shooting everything in JPEG, but the point is that file, just like film, it's coming out of the camera, it's pretty much just done. You're only going to be able to do minimal post-processing to it. And that's exactly for those of you that did go ahead and check out the actual images on my website. So if you watch that video and you want to actually be able to see those images bigger, if you go to my website here, I'll switch the screen over. It's the first article on the top of the page right there. Once the article loads, you can, Jason, yes, I agree with you. How dare I? Once the article loads, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom. Whoops. And of course, you should sign up for my newsletter, right? But you can scroll all the way down to the bottom and you can actually see the images much larger. And you can scroll through them. So you can see how sharp they are. You can see how much detail's in them. You know, no gaming the system. Every one of them had a little bit of post-processing done, but again, they're JPEGs, so there was a very minimal amount of post-processing that could be done to them, okay? All right, so Dean, you saw that video, you want one of those cameras. Yeah, you know, I'll tell you, like I said in the video, true story, like I thought it was a nice point and shoot. when they showed me the camera and asked me to do it, I'm always up for an adventure. So I said yes before I even really knew what I was getting myself into, and it was a blast. So I'm glad I did. But when I first saw the camera, I pretty much assumed point and shoot camera. Okay, this will be fun. It'll be like one of those photographer challenges, you know. It's a beast of a camera. The camera has an impressive amount of features to it. It really, really does. Performed wonderfully that day. It truly did. As I mentioned in the video, the biggest adjustment for me was getting used to not having the viewfinder. I've just always worked with a viewfinder my whole life. So, you know, doing this takes a little bit of getting used to, just to be able to make sure that you're really paying attention to the right things. Because, you know, we're not as good at multitasking as we think we are. So even though we're trying to pay attention to that screen that's right here, our brain is taking in all this other information, right? So there's a lot going on. You know, after an hour or so of shooting, that problem really kind of went away and it started to feel very, very natural. So, you know, I'm certainly not going to give up my EM1 Mark II anytime soon, but I can tell you I'm headed to New York tomorrow. The EPL9 is going as my backup camera. So, yeah, and I have, you know, no fear in doing that. So it definitely a nice little camera. So, all right, if you have questions, load them in. I don't have a lot of questions queued up tonight. So for those of you that are here, and I see that we've got some folks that don't normally make it. So I would encourage you load those questions in because there's a very good likelihood that I will be able to answer your question tonight, okay? I see one there. Where did it go? Andrew Page, do you think that I'll be at the WPPI convention in Las Vegas again next year? I am confident that I will be. I don't know for a fact if I will be there for Olympus yet. I mean, certainly I hope so, right? But that decision hasn't been made. But WPPI is an event that I will go to, you know, regardless. So yeah, you can count on it. And obviously as it gets closer, I'll be letting people know what my schedule is and that. I did just find out today that I will be speaking at Imaging USA, which is in, I believe, January. End of January, that's going to be in Atlanta next year. So that's the PPA convention. Olympus is not going to be doing a booth there this year. A lot of the companies don't. Sony doesn't, Nikon doesn't, which is a shame, but hey, you know, these trade shows cost a ton of money. So Olympus is also going to skip Imaging next year, but they'll be sending me as a presenter. So I'll be doing a platform talk for Imaging. But yeah, one way or another, I will be at WPPI for sure. You know, if nothing else, it's a great opportunity for, you know, me to meet people like you folks. So you can count on that. Okay. All right. So Ray, how much have you missed? Oh my God, tons. You should have been here like hours ago. No, I'm kidding. We're just getting rolling. Okay. So questions for tonight. We got a bunch here. I got a couple that were left over from last week. So for those of you that might have been here last week, if I didn't get your question in, I apologize, but I'm going to do my best to get it in tonight. Okay. So one of the first ones I want to get to, and I always find these questions interesting because one, I feel bad for the circumstances, but two, it's a matter of wanting to kind of reassure people that this is a doable thing. So this is a question from Eric. A few years back, a friend of his asked me to do a portrait, and she loved the portrait. People still commented on it. He did this with a Nikon D80. And by the way, folks, I may have answered this one last week. I didn't check it off, so it's on me if I did. I apologize, but I want to make sure that I give an answer tonight. So Eric shot this with a Nikon D80, and when they meet, she wants to have him do a shot of her kids and her grandchildren. The problem is, 2 years ago, he had a heart attack. So Eric, sorry to hear about that, but glad you're still hanging in there with us. Now he's working with an EPL5 on Olympus and the 45mm 1.8, and he wants to know if I think that would do the job okay, because he doesn't really have the money to go ahead and purchase new gear. And my short answer is, Eric, absolutely. It's a great camera, 45mm 1.8, awesome lens. Olympus, and again, I'm not trying to do the ambassador thing. I'm being really honest, guys. Don't take my word for it. Try them out, okay? The M.Zuiko lenses are amazing. They really don't have a bad lens. So, bottom line, pay attention, watch what you're doing, create good images. The camera will not let you down. You'll absolutely be able to do that, okay? Pete, he's decided to buy a light meter, and after doing a lot of research, he decided on a basic Seaconic model. After watching many videos on how to use a light meter, he found some metering off the model's nose, others off the chin, some off the neck, all insisting that theirs is the right way. What so you, Joe? So, Pete, that's not fair. You didn't tell me who I'm going to get, annoyed here by disagreeing with them. So, first things first, like if you've watched my videos, if you've heard me talk here in TogChat, you know that I own a light meter. In fact, there's one packed in that case. If you happen to be in New York, here's my prediction what you'll see. You'll see me walk out on the stage, and if you look on my hip, you'll see that light meter clipped to my hip. At most, in the 40-minute talk, you'll see me take it out and use it once, and then I'll just get so wrapped up in what I'm doing, I don't even bother. Okay, so let's at least give you that piece of background first before I answer your question. So if you are using incident readings on your light meter, so for those of you that aren't super familiar with handheld light meters, and I'm going to oversimplify here for everybody, right? So let's keep it simple, guys. Let's not get into the weeds tonight, okay? So you've basically got reflective and incident. Reflective means you are basically going to hold the meter here and it's going to meter the light reflecting off your subject, kind of the way your camera's light meter works, right? Incident means that if you're the camera and I'm the subject, I'm going to take the meter and I'm going to hold it in front of my face, aimed back at the camera, and I'm going to meter the light that is hitting my face. And then you can get spot meters, which I have a feeling, Pete, is what you're referring to. Because if people are talking about, well, are they going to meter the chin? Are they going to meter, whatever here, the neck, all that kind of stuff? They're probably using a spot meter. Here's what I would say to you, Pete. You gave me 3 pieces of the person's face: the nose, the chin, and the neck. Which of those 3 things is most important to you in terms of exposure? Does it ruin your picture if the neck gets a little dark? Because what happens, like, look at my neck right now. My neck is darker than my face. So if you meter for my neck and my face gets overexposed, does that make for a good shot? No, I don't think so. Likewise, if you meter for my nose, depending on how the light's set, maybe that makes the rest of my face dark or makes my neck really dark. Metering for the chin, probably maybe one of the better scenarios. I mean, for me, especially if I'm doing an incident reading, in other words, right, using the meter here, metering the light coming at me or my subject, I want to measure the light that's hitting my eyes, right in here, okay? Because that's the most important part of the shot to me. So here's the thing that you need to understand, Pete. When you buy that light meter, the light meter is not the end all of correctness, because the irony of it is you're talking about photographing models, meaning every decision that you're going to make in terms of exposure, every decision that you're going to make in terms of lighting, every decision that you're going to make in terms of color balance, white balance, etc., all of it is subjective. There is no absolutely right or wrong. There just isn't. So do yourself a favor, don't get that caught up in the weeds. My advice would be do not buy a spot meter. No, just to be fair, you mentioned models, right? So as long as we're talking about people, don't buy a spot meter. There's no need. There's really not in the digital realm. If you were doing highly technical work, scientific work, etc., well, okay then, that's a whole different ballgame. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about photographing people. So, buy an inexpensive meter like a little Seaconic. Make sure it's a flash meter, of course, and do incident readings, and you'll be absolutely fine. But please understand that light meter is not the end all of perfect exposure. So, all right, that being said, let's see here. Doyle just made it. Awesome. James, yes. What about the eyes? I absolutely would, okay? Let's see. Duke, my old transmitter finally bit the dust. I wanted to buy a Godox transmitter receiver and still use my speed lights. Mine don't have a USB port. Can I make them work without buying more lights? Duke, can't tell you because you didn't give me enough information. And even when you do, I may not be able to help you. But if you want to type more information, I'll try. I don't know what speed lights you have. Additionally, I don't know what a USB port is going to do for you on a speed light. USB ports are used for updating firmware, not triggering flashes. So I need more information. Best way I can put it. So Ishmael, hey there, how you doing? You got hired to shoot 35 girls in a beauty contest. Sucks to be you, man. Sorry. Has to be on a white background from the chest up. I was thinking a speed light behind the girl and some whiteboards around the face. And I read it too early because he's still typing. All right, so I'll wait until the rest of the message gets shared, Ishmael. I'll come back. Don't worry. Let's see. Ray, you've watched a lot of my videos. Awesome. Thank you. Douglas from Peru. You had a bad experience. Sorry about that. You went to the photo site the day before. The photo shoot was changed to nighttime. Well, yeah. So that's not so much bad experience. That's bad client, right? I mean, that kind of stuff happens. Not a whole lot we can do about that. That's what I always tell people. That's why photographers are paid the big bucks, right? Because we're problem solvers. All great photographs are the result of excellent problem solving, period, okay? DMAC, what is my go-to backdrop? Gray, man, hands down, gray. In fact, if you go to my YouTube channel here, let me just bring that back up. There it is. If you go to the YouTube channel, click on that little magnifying glass, type in the word gray, and you should see a video, best color for backgrounds, okay? So let me here, copy the link. I will put this in the chat window for you guys. There it is. Check that one out. That should hopefully help you solve that problem, but totally great. It's the most versatile there is, okay? Adam, so you're purchasing an EM1 Mark II. Bravo! It's time that you got a grown-up camera. Just kidding. Will it now lessen my learning curve to make portraits like you? Well, it's not going to lessen your learning curve, but in fact, if I'm being really honest, Adam, it's going to increase your learning curve. Only because you're going to realize that camera can do so much cool stuff, like way cool stuff. But hey, I know you can handle it. So yeah, enjoy it. Have fun with it. If you have any questions, there's this guy I know. His name's Jamie McDonald. Call him. Just kidding. But you can tell him I said that. Okay. Ishmael, you're using a Tokina 100mm lens. All right, that's cool. So what I didn't get here, Ishmael, is what are you using for lighting? I got the speed light behind the girl, some whiteboards around the face. Are you talking about just one speed light in the background on whiteboards? Let me know what you're thinking about for lighting. Hey, Clint's here. How we doing, Clint? So let's see here. Duke, I'm still waiting for some more background information on your transmitters or your strobes there, and I'll try and help you out with that. So Doug, too. Sony No Baloney in the house. All right. So let me just make sure I didn't miss any others. All right, good. I didn't miss any others back there. So going back to the questions that I had in the queue here, there he is. So Duke, you're wanting one that you can change the settings from the camera. You have two Nikon SB600s. Yeah, so the Nikon SB600s, to the best of my knowledge, won't work TTL and won't allow you to do the remote control with the Godox stuff, unfortunately. My advice would be sell those SB600s and get yourself some Godox speedlights and then just start building with the Godox system. You could probably go ahead and trade in those SB600s like straight up for a Godox speedlight. I'm not talking like the 8200 or the 400 or the 600, but a Godox speedlight, which they make great speedlights. You could probably trade them in straight up, and then you're good to go with the Godox triggers. And then from that point, then if down the road you decide to spend the money and get like an 8200 or get an 8400, an 8600, then you're set. I mean, I got to give Godox credit. They're just doing all the right things. Clint, you can smile. There it is. I'm saying it. Okay. Godox is doing all the right stuff. So even if you're getting into the Godox system at the low end with a speed light, the transmitters are going to carry you through the whole system as you grow, which is outstanding. So Ishmael, you were thinking about The speed light behind and some bounce boards around the face. Is this a good setup for the mission? Oh, okay. So Ishmael, these are pageant girls, right? And so for those of you that might have just tuned in a minute or two ago, Ishmael said he's going to be shooting 35 girls for a beauty contest, which, you know, sucks to be him. It's white background, chest up. And so his question is, he's thinking about putting a speed light behind the girl and then some whiteboards around the face. Ishmael, I love that look and feel personally. I do a lot of shots that way, especially kind of a lot of boudoir type stuff, okay? But I don't think that's going to be what your pageant organizers are going to look for. Pageant and beauty contest type imagery tends to be pretty crisp, pretty sharp, lit with, you know, kind of nice edges, so to speak. Putting all that light behind your subject is going to create kind of a very dreamy effect. While I love it, I'm not sure that's what they're looking for. So before you go quite that simple, I would encourage you maybe try and have a conversation with them or exchange some sample images and say, hey, this is kind of the vibe that I think I would like to do. What are your thoughts, right? That way you're going to avoid a potential disaster, you know, in the process of setting this up. So that would be my recommendation. And by the way, Ishmael, I hope you're going to make the Photo Plus this week. Looking forward to seeing you. So DMAC, the Godox Speedlight with a lithium battery is $179. Yeah, and you can get the Godox Speedlights that work on AA's for even less, right? So I'm just saying, depending on what his budget is, you know, he could probably swap those SB600s out almost even up for the low-end Godox, okay? So let's see, David. My advice on photographing a wedding group photo some weeks ago has already did wonders for you in a couple of... Excellent, glad to hear that. When trying to reduce fat in face portraits, you heard about the trick of bringing the chin forward, including in your videos? Yep, always does work wonderfully, okay? Doyle, how do you work with low light situations using a micro Four sensor camera when you can't use a flash? Doyle, come on, man, I thought you were a friend, okay? I work the same way that I work in any other situation. I set my exposure and I take the damn picture. Like, that's it. So, Olympus cameras handle a high ISO absolutely fine, but you know, if you're a pixel peeper and you're gonna take every file you have and blow it up 6 times bigger than it actually is to look to see what kind of noise is there, hell yeah, you're gonna see more noise in a Micro Four Thirds file than you're gonna see in a full frame file. Right? People need to get over the noise crap. Like, they just need to get over the noise crap. The worst part of it is most of the people say, here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to piss off a ton of photographers. The overwhelming majority of people that I see online bitching about noise, their photography sucks. Period. Quote me. I mean, just, why don't we get back to worrying about the subject? Come on, gang. Right? Where in the evolution of photography, from film to digital to where we are today, where did there suddenly become this line in the sand where your images are not allowed to have some kind of texture, some kind of feel? I mean, how ironic it is that people spend $3,000, $4,000 a body for Canons, Nikons, Sonys, and then what do? They go out and they spend even more money to buy presets to add grain back into the picture, because they liked what the film did. But the fact that the camera doesn't do it, that's what they'll spend all that extra money for. Come on, you know? The word photography, look it up in the dictionary, gang. Photo, light, requires light. It just does. So, yeah, you're working with next to no light. That means you're trying to do something on the cheap. Instead of lighting it, instead of finding the best way to get the best light, you're just trying to shoot whatever the heck's there because you're being lazy. And granted, there are some times where you just can't. But even then, you look for the best opportunities. And even then, you learn how your camera works. So as an example, I was down, you guys know, like back in May, I was down in Fort Worth, Texas for Olympus. I was at I think it was May or June, the Fort Worth Photo Fest. We got to go to a place in Fort Worth, Texas. It's a really cool place. If you ever get to go there, I highly recommend it. It's called Billy Bob's. And it's a rodeo and a restaurant and nightclub and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I got to shoot the rodeo. This was the world's worst lighting ever. I mean, I'm not kidding. It was like they had a couple fluorescent strips in the ceiling in this, but it was just disastrous. Everybody, I don't care if they were using Nikon, Olympus, Canon, Sony, they were all whining and crying about the lack of light and the amount of noise that they were getting. And so here I was with my Micro Four Thirds, and I was matching what they were doing. In fact, in many cases, getting less noise with my Micro Four Thirds than what they were doing. But that's because I understood the capabilities of my camera, and I understood what dynamic range can do for you. So what I was doing is I was working at about 4 ISO, 4 stops lower than what the Sony, Nikon, and Canon shooters were doing. When you looked at my LCD preview, my pictures were really dark, really dark. But I was well within the dynamic range capabilities of the raw files that my OMD EM1 Mark II was creating, or was capable of. So all I had to do was take those images when I was done shooting, go into Camera Raw or Lightroom Develop Panel, bring them up, boom, there it is. I wasn't stretching the boundaries of the files. I wasn't stretching the boundaries of the camera. I was using features of the camera to be able to limit the noise, because it didn't matter what brand you were shooting with, everybody was having noise issues. It's just horrible lighting. I mean, it was a really cool place, you know, with rodeo. It was neat, but it was like inside, it was dark. What was great about it is you could get really close to things. So you had to get great, you know, camera vantage points. But the lighting was just disastrous. So yeah, when you looked at my files on the LCD screen, every one of them was about 4 stops underexposed. Go into Camera Raw, poof, one slider, there's the image. Looks great. So, you know, again, it's not a problem unless you are trying to be unrealistic. The idea that people will spend $3,000 and $4,000 for a camera body so that twice a year they can take pictures in the dark, to me, is freaking ridiculous. Like, what's the point behind doing that? What do you gain? You don't gain anything, except you spend a lot of extra money. So, that's my take there, guys. Sorry. Norman B., you were wondering if I mind more than one catch light in a subject's eyes, or is that a no-no? Norman, there are no rules. Rule is a 4-letter word. Remember what your mama taught you. No 4-letter words. Norman, I promise you, the only people that have ever talked to me about catch lights in the eyes in a photograph are people with cameras. I've never had a subject tell me that. Now, is it possible to have an obnoxious catch light? Is it possible to have 2 catch lights and one of them's in a really weird place so it draws your attention and it's distracting? Oh, heck yeah. Absolutely. But is there a rule, like you can never do this, can never do that? No, that's crap. That's just total crap, okay? So certainly you don't want catch lights that are distracting, or catch lights that are unusual and as a result distracting, right? And it depends. So actually, I'll give you one example. When people do clamshell lightings, that's catch light on the top, catch light on the bottom, and the bottom one is too bright. To me, I find that really distracting when the bottom catch light is brighter than the top catch light. And usually if the bottom catch light's brighter than the top catch light, that also means there's going to be shadows on tops of the cheeks, on tops of the nose, on top of the lip, which means the person looks part zombie in the process, right? So, or if the only catch light in the shot is like in the lower corner of the eye down here, that means the lights are positioned very oddly. Remember, as of the age of 2, our brains as humans, this is science, cognitive psychology, our brains are wired by age 2 to expect that light comes from above. That's why when you walk into a building, the lights aren't on the floor. They're in the ceiling for a reason. Okay? So that's the whole point there. Ed Francis, once or twice a year, shoot in dark, rent it. I completely agree with you, sir. Completely agree. Okay? Let's see, where are we at here? Going back to David here. Sorry, David. But to you, the photos look very forced. Is there a way to try and make it look natural? Could you elaborate on reducing fat in a face portrait? Well, David, the forced part has nothing to do with your camera angle or your camera perspective. That's body language. That's facial expression. So that actually means that you're not putting your subject at ease. You're not making a good connection with your subject. That's really what's going on there. Okay. But yeah, the force thing is that's not something that's usually associated with camera angles or that type of stuff. It's more of a body language and a facial expression type of situation. So I think that's kind of what you need to look at with that. Okay. All right. Back to my list here. I'm all caught up in the chat window. So if you guys got more questions, go ahead, throw them in there. Let's see. Emma. This is also left over from last week. She would love to hear how I got into beauty portraiture and if I have any advice about finding and keeping your photo work and brand focused while still being creative, since there are so many directions that you could take in portrait work, you know, whether it's editorial or family or weddings. It seems so easy to spread yourself all over the place as a portrait artist. So Emma, let's approach this actually from, I'm going to approach it as a business question as opposed to a creativity and a style question, right? Because I'll be honest with you, my head hurts when people start talking about what's my style. Because honestly, the minute you label your style, you just put yourself in a box. That's why I don't like that. So let's look at it from a business standpoint. So I want you guys to follow along because it's going to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, right? So this side, here we go. You never, as a business person, as a photographer who is trying to make money, you don't want to become a jack of all trades and a master of none. So it is important to have your marketing show a focus on a type of work that you do. Okay? That's this side of the mouth. This side of the mouth, there are, however, opportunities in some categories of photography from a marketing standpoint to use similar types of photography that are maybe a little bit more artistic and more creative, solely for the purpose of drawing attention so that people will have a higher appraisal of your bread and butter work, shall we say. So as an example, you guys know that for many years, I made my living doing modeling portfolios. Well, the bad news, gang, for those of you that like to shoot models and would like to do modeling portfolios, number one, there's no money in that now, so just give up on that. But the point is this. A good modeling portfolio is actually really boring photographs. A good modeling portfolio is not creative. So I completely stumbled onto the fashion portraiture thing, which is the other part of Emma's question. Literally one day, my Russian makeup artist came into my studio and had an idea to do this thing with bright red lips and this blue fur she had with her. And literally, you know, I'm listening to her and she was all excited. Russian, you know, is her primary language. English is her secondary language. So it's heavy accent as she's telling me all about this. And I'm just like, okay, whatever, because I don't understand what you're saying. So we'll try it at the end. So the end of the day came, we shot this young woman's portfolio. And indeed, we had about 40 minutes of time left. So I told her, all right, go for it. You've got 30 minutes to work on it. And I need 10 minutes to be able to shoot. So she had this whole idea planned out. She even told me, you got to get a ladder, you got to light it. So she knew exactly what she wanted me to do, which was good because I had no idea what she was going to do. It was my very first ever beauty portrait / fashion portrait. We had this, you know, basically just bold makeup on the girl's face, but we had this blue feather boa wrapped around her face, and that was it. It was fairly simple, but it was kind of cool. It was neat. So we kind of got hooked on those, and we started doing more of them when we had free time. And then we kind of became addicted to the idea. So pretty much every shoot that we did at the end of the day, we did a beauty shot. But then what I started to realize, and I dumb lucked onto this, I started to realize that as soon as I started posting them on my website, I actually started booking more clients. Not to shoot these crazy beauty shots, but the crazy beauty shots made people go, whoa, wow, and then they hired me for the boring pictures. And it's the same with makeup artists. A good makeup artist, what they're going to do is they're going to put those crazy beauty shots on their website, because then the brides, then the corporate people that need a makeup artist for a headshot, they look at that work and say, oh my God, this makeup artist is amazing. I want to hire them. Even though the makeup they're going to have them do is so basic and elementary, but it's because of that outstanding work that it raises the perceived value of their work. So for me, that was really where the fashion stuff, the fashion portraiture came along, and that's kind of how that developed. And that kind of became my thing because it's something that I have a lot of fun with. And it allows me to break a lot of the portrait rules, right? Because most portraits have a certain amount of rules with them to determine, is this effective, this photograph, is it effective as this type of portrait? So fashion portraits, the cool part is I get to take a little bit from portraiture, a little bit from fashion, and I kind of jam them together, and I do whatever I want. which is what's fun about it, okay? But I actually don't make a lot of money shooting fashion portraits. I make my money because of the fashion portraits. So that's kind of the answer to that question, okay? Chaz Madge, let's see. I did miss your question. Sorry, sir. Let's scroll back here, see if I could see it here. The only thing I'm seeing here, Chaz, I don't understand. So you got to help me out here. Would correct distortion made by glasses for a portrait? I'm not sure what you're asking me. So if I missed something else, just do me a favor and put the whole question back in there, okay? Let's see, Alfred, what is a camera and how can you shoot amazing photos? Just go pick up your phone, man. You'll be good to go, okay? So let's see here. Javi from Central New Jersey. This is a long one, but it's a good one. So he has a quick question, however, it's a very long question, related to the workflow from after the shoot to the final delivery of images to the client. So now, follow along, gang. This is actually kind of creative. I wouldn't say that it's a great idea, but it's kind of creative that he came up with this workflow. So what he's doing now is that after a shoot, he creates a secret Facebook page. That always sounds so cool. Secret Facebook page. So just him and his client can see it. That's it. That's where he puts all the photos from the shoot. So he's actually using a secret Facebook page for proofing. And he posts all the images from the shoot, you know, the proofs that he's going to show the client, okay? And that way the client can indicate in the comments section which ones they want him to clean up and enhance digitally, you know, do his retouching on. But then here's where it kind of goes a little crazy, Javi. So then he delivers the final images to the client using SmugMug. But I know what a lot of you are thinking, so hold on a second. He got SmugMug for free for 1 year after he purchased Skylum, okay, because for a while they had a deal going with SmugMug where you got it for free. So the stuff that he's downloading, letting people download obviously from SmugMug is, you know, full res images because he's basically selling people files, okay? He's wondering if there's a web service that would allow him to do both tasks in a single place. Yes, SmugMug, pay for it. So, Javi, I got to be honest with you. Like, if you're shooting for clients, because you used the word client, right? You used it. I didn't. If you're shooting for clients and you can't afford to pay for SmugMug for the year, you are doing things horribly wrong from a business standpoint. Horribly wrong. So just pony up and get a SmugMug membership for, you know, a year, whatever, okay? So he goes on to say, you know, so is there a web server that would allow him to do a service that would allow him to do both tasks? And then he also wonders how I do things, which is probably much smarter than his heuristic system. And then he's saying his end of the 1 year subscription to SmugMug is approaching, and he's wondering if he should renew or spend that money somewhere else. So, you know, Javi, you do realize that SmugMug allows you to show proofs. So I don't know why you would use Facebook, because the whole Facebook thing, it's actually not convenient. It's clunky. And besides that, it's not what Facebook was intended to do. And look, you know, we can all make Facebook the bad guy, but let's remember something. We all need to stop bitching about Facebook. We don't pay for it. We get it for free. The fact of the matter is that any photographer who's making money in today's world, especially doing portraits and weddings and that kind of stuff, gets a tremendous amount of value from Facebook, whether they spend money or don't spend money. And they don't have to pay for that. So you don't get to bitch about it, right? But the bottom line is you're using Facebook in a way that it wasn't intended to be used. And it's also just the user experience from doing that. That's clunky. It's not the way to go. SmugMug does everything that you need. Like all the things that you're describing in your workflow here, SmugMug does all of it. So my sincere advice is use SmugMug the whole way. So Javi's coming to Photo Plus this week, so I'm looking forward to meet you, Javi. If I have time, when you catch me, we can certainly talk more about your SmugMug issue, but trust me, pony up, pay for SmugMug, you'll be good to go. So, okay. Let's see, Langston Ball, I did not answer your question yet from Facebook, so sit tight. Chaz Maz, the face gets distorted from the camera angle, looking at the face through the glasses, lens to the side. Why do I think I'm still, so Chaz, that's a statement. Your face gets distorted from the camera angle, looking at the face through the glasses lens to the side of the face. Is that a question? Or are you asking me how to solve that? How do you solve that? Turn the head. But I'm not sure. I'm missing something here. Sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I'm reading questions and I'm talking, but that's not a question, it's a statement. So help me out, okay? Jason Page, Format does have a good proofing option. The only downside for Format, though, unfortunately, is that, and I've said this publicly, I love Format. They have sponsored some of my TogChats in the past. They're really, really stingy on how many images they let you post per subscription. So unless you pay for one of the bigger subscriptions, it's really hard to do proofing if you're doing a lot of shoots. If you're doing a shoot here or shoot there, then it would work out great. But if you're posting, any kind of volume of proofs, Format's actually not a good option, unfortunately, because you wind up spending a crazy amount of money to be able to do that, much more so than what you would spend with a company like SmugMug. Also, if you are going to be selling downloads or selling prints, which, by the way, hobby, if you want to make money, you need to sell prints. None of this download stuff, okay? So you need to go ahead and go with somebody like SmugMug because they do all of it, okay? Langston mentions Pixie Set. Yeah, the three big ones, guys, for the proofing and the selling and the fulfillment are SmugMug, Pixie Set, and Zenfolio. Those are the three big ones. There are other options out there, absolutely. I love Format for website hosting and for occasional proofing. But if I'm selling prints and I want to be able to automate everything online, have the fulfillment done and all that, Format's not really the ideal scenario, okay? All right, next up here. Where are we at? Anthony. Well, okay, so actually this is a follow-up to my topic for the night. So Anthony says, thanks for all that you do. Thanks for being honest and transparent. I appreciate that. Can you please explain with more details all the prep that you make before shooting someone? He understands this question is open. He'll need more details. Anthony, I do a lot. So here's what I can tell you, because unfortunately, it's definitely something that would take me too long to try and respond to here. I have talked about this in quite a few videos. Talked about it like in quite a few TogChats. I have shared my prep documents, in other words, the ones that I give to models, with my patrons if you join my Patreon. In fact, the Patreon information, it'll pop up on the screen there in a minute. And I am working on an ebook download that will be available probably by the end of the year that talks about how I prep for multiple shoots, as I mentioned in the beginning of TogChat tonight. So that will be coming, okay? So Chazmaj, if I look at my face on the screen, the side of your face is distorted looking at the glasses, i.e. the side of the face is not in line. Jazz, I'm not trying to be difficult. That's another statement. Like the way I understand the English language, I've got two statements from you. There was a question before that said, did I miss answering your question? But I couldn't find the question. So now I've got two statements. What are you asking me how to get rid of that distortion? Turn the face. That's it. Turn the face. Because eyeglasses are a variable that you can't control. But I don't understand what the question is, okay? Doyle, do I still do the $75 an hour consultations? I do. I absolutely do, yes. So, and again, Doyle, eyeglasses, like, guys, I'm not trying to be difficult. I need somebody to type me a question. Like, one person's saying eyeglasses, another person's giving me two statements. What do you want me to solve the problem here? I've told you guys twice now, based on what I think the question is, the answer is move the head. That's it, just move the head, change the angle, okay? But I still don't have a question. Everybody's giving me like words and I'm supposed to figure out what you need. Help me out, guys, come on, okay? I'm kind of multitasking here, right? So going back to, do I do the consultations? I do, okay? If you will go back to my website where I left off here. If you go to my website, up at the top of every page where the links are here, click on lectures and workshops, do video consultations, and you can set up the 1 hour consultations there, or you can also do full day workshops with me either here in my studio in Allentown, Pennsylvania, or we do them via Zoom chat, which allows us to actually do interactive workshops where you're basically shooting in your location, I'm shooting in my location, demoing things for you. So yes, so that is an option. It is still available. Okay, so would Chaz? I'm sorry. Somebody's got to help me here. Are you asking me how do you correct for distortion made by glasses for a portrait? Is that the question you're asking me? Because would correct distortion made by glasses for a portrait? I don't get what the question is because I've answered it twice. I'll answer it a third time. Distortion made by glasses. You turn the face, you try a different angle, or you get rid of the glasses, pop them out, whichever. But yeah, that's it. If that's what the question is, okay? DMAC, I will be in Austin, Texas on December. I'll tell you in a second here. Let's see. I think it's the 9th and 10th, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Austin, Texas is coming up. I'm going to be at the Precision. Austin, Texas is the 7th and 8th of December. I don't know my actual teaching schedule there yet, but I'll be there both days for the Precision Camera Holiday Expo. So yeah, hopefully you can make it to Austin. So, and we'll get to meet there. Okay. So, Ricardo, what do you use for portable power while out on location and shooting with monolights? Well, the lights that I use are Godox lights, or lithium batteries. Based on the idea that you're using the word monolights, Ricardo, I'm going to assume that you are using something other than flashes with a lithium battery. So you kind of need to tell me a little bit about what kind of strobes you're using. Like, can they be hooked up to AC monolights? Are they already battery powered? What kind of battery? How big are they and how much juice do they take? Because if you're talking like battery pack strobes that, you know, need a separate power pack, that's a whole different ball game than like taking a Pulsey Buff Alien Bee on location where you could use like a mini Vagabond. So again, give me a little bit more information there. Okay. So yeah, and you guys, oh my God, this is like brutal. So Chaz, I realize we have different English. I'm sorry. I just need to get a full question. So once again, you can answer Chaz yes or no. Is your question, how do I get rid of the distortion caused by glasses? If the answer is yes, Leo, in all due respect, telling somebody to take the glasses off is not the solution, okay? Because you tell me to take my glasses off for a portrait, I'm gonna tell you, you're fired, get me a new photographer that knows what the hell they're doing, right? Because you can't tell a person, no, you're not allowed to look like yourself in your picture, right? What sense does that make? It doesn't make any sense. Right? So taking the glasses off is not the solution. Okay? The photographer's job is to minimize that. Now, depending on how bad the glasses are, believe me, I've done portraits in my career where, you know, people are wearing like Coke bottle glasses and you're just not going to get rid of all that distortion. You're just not. In fact, if you guys pay really close attention, every time you look at me on a video, you're seeing distortion because look, this eye looks much bigger than this eye. But in reality, it's not. That's distortion, okay? My left eye, this is a magnifying lens that I have in here. So it completely offsets, or excuse me, my right eye is magnifying lens, okay? It's huge magnification. So it completely offsets the way that my eyes look. There's no way that you're gonna take that out. You're just not, okay? So it's there, it's a part of the process. For me, that's a scenario where I'm going to use the, you know, which is the person's good side. So this is my good side, smaller eye, closer to the camera. But yeah, it depends on how bad it is. The way you described it earlier, where it's, you know, the issues with the edge of the face, it's just turn the face a little bit more, tweak the angle that you're shooting from, and you can usually make that go away. So, okay. Ed, do you have a particular older or vintage lens that you still use? Because no, not at all, man. I'm not into photography for the gear. I don't care about the gear. I don't get off on the gear. I just, no, sorry. I mean, no disrespect to the people that do, especially if you're one of them. That is not my issue. That is not my joy. I'm in the photography for my interaction with my subjects. So the camera is nothing more than a tool. It's like buying a Craftsman screwdriver, except I use Olympus. That's it. So, okay. Life's beautiful. In regard to eyeglasses, is it unusual for the autofocus to focus on the glasses rather than the eye? And is this a no-no? Well, it's not unusual depending on your camera brand, depending on how you had the autofocus set up. It could catch the frame instead of the eye. That happens, sure. Is it a no-no? It's only a no-no if you're foolish enough to be shooting the person with glasses with autofocus at f1.2, and then you have a situation where the frames are in focus, but the person's eye's out of focus. That's a no-no. That's just sloppy, right? So if you're going to use the autofocus and you have a person with glasses and you're shooting wide open, so I'm putting all those criteria in, right? But a lot of people do that these days. Then yes, you want to go ahead and you want to make sure that you're not shooting wide open, but maybe shooting at like f2.8 or 4 to make sure that you've got enough depth of field there. So if the camera's autofocus grabs the frame, you're still going to get the eye in focus. Because the blurry eye, that would not be cool. Definitely not cool. Okay. GNAP Studio, so looking forward to meeting you Thursday. Awesome, man. I'll be there. Take your suggestion for using the clamps and weights outdoors on windy days. Use 15 pounds weights. How do I carry the weights? If you look at the website for Stand Daddy, they actually have a little carrying hook that's very inexpensive that you can put the Stand Daddies and the weights on and just carry. It's got a handle and it allows you to carry it. It makes it super, super simple. Okay. So, but yeah, I look forward to meeting in GNAP. I speak Thursday at 3:30 on the Olympus stage, and then pretty much every hour on Thursday, other than 3 o'clock, I will be in the Olympus Portrait Experience, talking to people, doing little demos, that kind of stuff. So definitely stop by, okay? So let's see, Ed Francis. Fair enough, we all like to paint with light. I was just checking if you liked a particular brush. Okay, I think you're kind of mixing metaphors there, but yeah, because I actually do light painting, but not with vintage lenses. So, but yeah, but I get the gist of what you're after. So, GNAP, yeah, I mean, 5 pounds on each leg you can do. That's a lot of weight. I mean, that's like 15 pounds that you're putting on. Like, unless you're using like a huge modifier, that actually sounds like it maybe just a tad bit more, a tad excessive. But hey, obviously, you know, you don't want to take risks. You want to make sure your gear's sitting tight. So. Pinnacle Pete, the light meter question was about an incident meter with ambient light, not about using a spot meter, if that helps. So the problem with an incident meter, I mean, think about it. So your light source is 3 feet away, Pete, right? And you're going to put your meter here, here, or here. How much does that change the exposure, right? So for those people that are like, oh no, put it here or it's wrong here, or put it here or it's wrong here, I'm sorry, they're idiots. They just are. Like, that makes no sense. Okay? It makes absolutely no sense. So the difference in the light is minuscule. And if you're photographing a portrait, put it on the eyes. That's the most important part of the face. That's where all the action's at. So yeah, but again, don't use your light meter as the end all. Okay? GNAP Olympus booth is great. I think so. They give a free cleaning booth every year. Yes, they will have the clean and check group there. So the technicians will be there. If you have Olympus gear, make sure you bring it to the show. Well, actually I shouldn't say that. Most of the manufacturers do. So I can't speak for Panasonic and Fuji. They probably do. So please don't hate on me. I'm just being honest. I don't know. Sony does free camera checks. Nikon and Canon do it. But for Nikon, you've got to be a member of NPS, which means the average Nikon user can't get theirs cleaned. And Canon, you have to be, I think it's a Canon Pro membership, whatever they call it, which also means that the average user can't get theirs checked. So Canon and Nikon, yeah, they still got their heads in the sands. You know, it is what it is. But yeah, if you're an Olympus user, bring your gear, get it cleaned, get it checked out. No cost, totally the way to go. Okay. All right. So Pete, I hope that helps with the light meter thing. But yeah, I honestly, I think you're overthinking way too much. And just think of the logic about what those people are telling you. Like the idea that it's got to be one and not the other is really ridiculous. Okay. Ricardo, going back to those lights, you use 2 cheap Neewer 400-watt model lights indoor studios. So you want to invest in a battery power pack. So I would use, Ricardo, I would use, look at 2 products. Well, there's actually 3 you can look at, right? So one would be the Pulsey Buff, if you're in the United States. So I don't know where you're at, Ricardo, but if you're in the US, you can look at the Pulsey Buff Mini Vagabond. All right, it's a lithium battery that will power 2 strobes, 400 watt second monolights. It'll probably hold those or handle those quite easily. Okay. If you're not in the US, then you want to look at possibly Interfit. Interfit just came out with a lithium battery pack. It's a little on the big side, but it works, okay? So it's worth looking into that. And then this one's hit or miss. Sometimes you can only get them in the US, sometimes you can find them elsewhere in the world. But Photogenic, which used to be one of like the big strobe manufacturers, not so much now, they're a shell of what they used to be, but Photogenic makes a sine wave converter, which is a lithium battery pack also that you can take out on location. But that would definitely be, that would be the way to go, so, okay. Doyle Huge, fill sandbags with P-Rock, sand is messy. Or you go by the video that I posted and you get stand daddies and then there's no mess. It's so much easier. But yeah, hey, you know, if you're into all that mess, that's cool. So, all right, I got a couple more questions here still in the queue. We could probably handle, you know, 2 or 3 more questions there, guys, if you want to toss them in. So Langston had a question. He just got hired for his first fashion photo shoot and he must have equipment or checklist. This, the photographer has the location, outdoor natural light, has the wardrobe being provided and mainly needs to focus on shooting. With that said, any tips? Yeah, don't screw it up. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure what tips that I can give you. I will be honest. So seriously, I want to try and help you, but I got to be straight. I hate when people ask me questions like that. Okay, for a couple of reasons. One, you probably should have thought of that before you got the gig. 2, I know you're just sincerely looking for my help and assistance, but when you ask such a broad, open-ended question like that, all you're going to get is a bunch of hot air opinions from people. And even if I gave you my favorite fashion photography tips, they're not necessarily going to apply to what you're doing because I don't know what you're doing. All I know is you're shooting for a magazine and there's going to be a wardrobe being provided. That's it. I don't even know if you have a makeup artist, because that would be tip number 1, make sure you're working with a makeup artist. Tip number 2, make sure you're working with a stylist. Not just somebody handing you the wardrobe, but make sure you're working with a stylist, okay? Those are generic tips, they're very important. Number 3, I want to be completely honest. You're asking a guy for fashion advice that is not really a fashion photographer. I'll be the first to raise my hand and say, I suck at fashion photography. And there's a simple reason for that. All of my photographs have the model's eyes extremely prominent in the images. Fashion photography traditionally does not, okay? But yeah, I mean, Langston, my advice would be actually to go back, other than work with a makeup artist, work with a stylist, my advice would be to go back to what I was talking about early in the shoot, practice. Practice not just your camera, not just lighting, but whatever the shots are you intend to do, work them out in advance, set them up, do them, try them out. Make sure that you walk into the shoot knowing exactly what you're doing and having a plan for your first couple of shots. Super, super important, okay? Also, if this is for a magazine, make sure that you're studying the magazine, studying their style, study the way that they use the images, get a sense for how do they like to build a story, okay? Like, is every shot gonna be full length? Do they want some close-up shots? Do they want detail, like pictures of buckles, belts, collars, that kind of stuff? It's important to understand what are they gonna want from an editorial standpoint. So remember that layout, it's not about you. It's not about your style. It's about the clothing and it's about the magazine. So you know, you've got these 2 clients. One, you've got to make the clothing look interesting, but 2, you've got to make sure that you're fulfilling the editorial needs of the magazine. So that means that you don't just go in and shoot what you shoot, but they may want detailed stuff. They may want full-length shots. They may want shots that really feature like a makeup style, etc. So that's the kind of stuff that I find not enough people when they first do this stuff. It's just like, oh, I'm going to do a fashion shoot, okay? And the other thing to understand about fashion is that fashion is not what most people think it is. Like, it's always funny when I shot modeling portfolios, if I would work with a girl that was 5'10" or 5'11", who clearly was, you know, had the potential to be a fashion model, I would say to her, okay, look, we're going to do a couple fashion shots for your portfolio. And they would send me pictures of dresses that looked like they just came off the rack at Macy's, right? That's not fashion. That's catalog. That's boring. If you ever go look at a fashion magazines and the pictures in those fashion magazines, those are the pictures that you look at and your first thought is, who the hell would wear that? Or where the hell would you wear that, right? So fashion is about mood, it's about attitude, it's about concept, it's about feeling. Fashion's not like, here's the pretty dress. That's not fashion. So understand that, and it's too bad you can't come to my photo walk on Friday, because that's really the big part of what my photo walk on Friday is, since we're doing street fashion, and I'm not a fashion photographer. Really what I'm doing is I'm going to be spending a lot of time opening people's eyes about how they really prepare for fashion. And I've got a surprise for the people that are coming, because I happen to have a very accomplished fashion photographer from New York City who's coming along with me. So this is somebody that's actually working right now in New York that, obviously is going to be able to bring some local experience with, editors and that to the table. That honestly, Langston, that's going to be the biggest thing. In terms of camera technique and that, yeah, bottom line, if you don't have your camera technique down, there's not much I can do to help you at this point, right? You're ready to go. But just make sure that you really kind of understand the assignment from the end to the beginning. Not from the beginning to the end, but the end to the beginning, right? That printed magazine. How do they like to print? What do they like to print? What do they expect in that layout? And then work backwards to make sure that you can deliver that. That would be the big advice, okay? Let's see, Ed Francis, in the years I've watched your videos and live streams, you're clearly passionate about what you do. Well, thank you, sir, I am. Was there a moment that fired you into your career, or was it a progression? Oh, there was definitely a moment. There's been a series of moments, because, I still tell people that I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up yet, which is very true. I just know that there will be a camera involved, for sure. The first moment that fired me into my career, I bought my first camera at 11. I've talked about that before, but at age 14, I had my first picture published in a newspaper. So in the mind of a 14-year-old, okay, so 14-year-old Joe, I came home from school. My parents got the paper every day, and up on the top of the paper, the masthead at the top of the paper, underneath the name of the paper, is called the North Penn Reporter. Underneath the name of the paper, it had every day read by 22,000 daily. And of course, as the paper grew, that number grew. But at that time, when I was 14, it was 22,000 daily, right? So I came home from school one day, picked up the paper, turned it over, looked at the bottom of the front page, and there was my photo with my photo credit underneath, photo by Joe Edelman. So in my 14-year-old mind, that immediately went to 22,000 people know that I took that picture, like people read the photo credits, right? But that was it, done. I was, sold on newspaper work. I wanted to spend my life being a photojournalist. Life takes other turns. The industry changed a lot. In the mid-1980s, I started getting involved with studio work. I started a studio with no idea what I was doing. No idea how to do studio work and no idea how to run a business. I quickly managed to land some national clients. I was doing food work. I was shooting 4x5. And believe me, I did everything when I started the studio. I was doing Little League, swim teams, weddings, portraits, you name it. I did it all to be able to pay the bills, because by that time I had a kid, I had a family, so I had to make money. So it's kind of been a constant progression. Even the teaching aspect of it, that happened probably, I think, somewhere around 2010, maybe 2009. A gentleman, I'm actually going to be teaching there next week, the Horizon Photography Summit in Newark, Delaware. A gentleman who runs that, Steve Gottlieb, reached out to me by email and said, hey, you got to come and teach a glamour course at my workshops that I'm doing. And I'm like, what? Why? Who wants to listen to me? And he wouldn't take no for an answer. I had no interest in teaching. I thought, how stupid is that? I don't want to teach. Who's going to listen to me teach? So I went, I did it, had a lot of fun, got a great response. One thing led to another. Here we are today. So, but yeah, so still, along the way, trying to figure things out, and we'll see where it goes. Okay. Kevin Clark, you're going to be attending your first Photopalooza in St. Louis. Awesome, man. Very, very good. Is it okay to take a picture of you? Of course. Absolutely. Dress warm, though, because apparently 2 of my presentations I'm doing outside at like 4:30 in the afternoon in St. Louis in the second week in November. So it's probably going to be a little cold. But some of the stuff's inside, some of the stuff's outside. But yeah, definitely, Kevin. Looking forward to it. Hope to see you there. Okay. So let's see here. Rough shots. You got asked to do an event/portrait shoot. You usually do digital photos, but you're being asked for 16 by 20 prints. You quoted something based on research in your area, but any advice on how to handle the prints? Very carefully. Don't get fingerprints on them. I'm sorry. I know that's not what you're looking for. Send them out. I mean, certainly shoot digital. Don't shoot film, right? Get the prints made. Use a company like, Bay Photo or Miller's or MPix, any of those. And yeah, all of those labs, I will tell you this, Rough Shots, if you go to their websites, they have lots of information, all of them do, on their websites about how to prep your files for printing so that you make sure you're sending them, basically the right stuff that you need and that. So just do a little bit of research. So Ed Francis, loving to start before you're ready attitude. Yeah, Ed, I hate sounding like the old guy, but especially with my wife being a college professor and with me teaching every couple of semesters, I find it incredibly frustrating how many young people today, and even not so young, are just really anxiety ridden. And now I say that to be clear, I've always been a fairly highly self-monitoring person. I don't like failing. I don't like being embarrassed, but I was ultimately never afraid to fail if I was trying. And so I was always one that would just dive in and do it and figure it out later. While I realize that's not for everyone, I find that so many people today are really handicapped by that fear of failure, so much so that they just don't try. And that's unfortunate. So, I think that everybody has to find kind of a balance point. And once you found that balance point, that tipping point, shall we say, the only way you're really going to succeed and the only way you're really going to move forward is to get it to tip. So you're maybe not going to jump or dive, right? But you still got to get it to tip. There's that tipping point. And, believe me, I am not trying to compare myself in any way, but when you look at the most successful, entrepreneurs of our time, not photographers necessarily. I mean, hell, we can go for the Steve Jobs and the Bill Gates of the world, whomever, Zuckerberg, right? These people indeed ran before they could walk. These people just built things and they broke stuff and then they fixed it and then they broke more stuff and then they fixed it and they kept moving forward. For me, that's just kind of been life. Believe me, I broke a lot of stuff along the way and you just keep moving forward. You learn from it, you grow, you try to get better. And that's the only way you ultimately succeed. And I find so many people when I do my traveling and my teaching and even here on YouTube that desperately want to succeed. And in all fairness, they're busting their butt trying to improve, but they're still struggling with getting over that tipping point, and it is not easy. It certainly, seems easy for me to say that since, I've already done it and I've already gone past that point. And for me, I've kind of made it a habit, but it really is the only advice that you've got to be willing to tip the scale. Until you tip the scale, the good stuff just doesn't happen. So, let's see, Andrew, you have this pending in Facebook in more detail, but you picked up your first radio flash, the Godox TT6850 and the X1T. The flash will not go into slave mode in any quick, obvious gotchas. Are there any quick, obvious gotchas that I might be missing? Andrew, I'm like the worst guy to ask that question to. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know. My advice would be, since you mentioned my Facebook group, there are a lot of really good Godox Facebook groups out there. If you reach out to me on Facebook later, Andrew, I can at least point you in the direction of one or two that I'm in. And I know there's others. I know there's a lot of others. So I may not even know what the best ones are. But I would go ahead and dive into those groups and ask them. You're going to get a much faster response and it's going to be much, much more helpful. But I really don't know. I'm not familiar with that particular model enough to be able to help you out. And I'm still admittedly relatively new to the Godox ecosystem. So, okay. Let's see. Bennett, love my delivery. Well, thank you, sir. And I've learned heaps about portraiture, but you're mostly a macro photographer. Cool. Do I shoot any macro stuff? And if so, do you use the focusing stacking built into the Olympus cameras? So I frequently will do macro stuff just for kind of fun and for, kind of abstract stuff. So I'm not into the insects and that kind of stuff, but I love shooting a lot of abstract stuff. I have been just simply dabbling with the focus stacking and all that with the Olympuses. I have not mastered it yet to the extent of its potential, because it has truly some amazing potential. But yeah, it's just one of the many really, really awesome features that are built into that EM1 Mark II. I love it. So let's see here. Jean, to be a successful photographer is not just understand photography, but to understand how to run a business. Oh, and believe me, Jean, truer words have never been spoken. Success in photography requires being successful at business. It simply does. And believe me, that's a lesson that I learned the hard way from scratch. All the lessons that I teach people about running a photography business at this point, every single one of those is the result of mistakes that I've made and stumbles that I've made and times that I fell down. Because I started a business when I was, 25, 26, and I started it by saying, I'm in business. I have a business. That's not really how you start a business, right? but that's how I started it. And then it was this matter of, well, who am I going to get to pay me? So I got to go find people that are going to pay me. And I shot pictures for anybody and everybody and talked to anyone and talked to everyone. And, and that's actually literally how I got into doing, quote unquote fashion back in the day, 1980. So here, for those of you, this is how old Joe is. All right. So I met a woman at a networking event. It was like a Chamber of Commerce thing. Really attractive woman. And she strikes up a conversation. I was already married, but still, she was gorgeous. Strikes up a conversation. She's like, have you ever done any fashion photography? I have a line that I need to get photographed right away. So obviously, up to that point in my life, I had never done a single piece of fashion photography. And I had only taken a few portraits at that point. Okay, like serious portraits. So my response, of course, is, yeah, I can handle that. No problem. Tell me about your business. So this was in the mid-1980s. So remember, guys, mid-1980s. Let me just mention one movie, because this will help. The movie Flashdance. Remember how, the designer leotards were really big back in the 80s? The name of this woman's business, this is a true story, you can't make this stuff up. The name of this woman's business was Leotardo da Vinci. Priceless, right? So literally a week later, she had rented an old conservatory. She had 3 models come in from New York. I shot this entire shoot. It was like 2 days. We must have shot 30 or 40 outfits. I had never done location lighting. I shot everything on Kodachrome, completely unforgivable film. And it worked. Stuff was great. I was hooked. That was the beginning of my fashion career. 2 years later, this same woman, I believe it was 2 years later, it was a year or 2 years after that, she was the first designer to design the first uniforms for the Philadelphia Eagle cheerleaders. So I was the first photographer to ever photograph the Philadelphia Eagle cheerleaders. So yeah, I mean, you just go for it. You don't worry about, can you do it? Now, when I say go for it, you still got to prepare. You still got to get your head wrapped around things. But yeah, you can't hold yourself back. You have to go. So, Ajax, if this is the wrong place to ask, please ignore. Oh, I'll ignore you. No, I'm kidding. What's it say here? Do I remember any names of the audiobooks you recommend to listen to? Ajax, send me a message, and I'll have to pull them off of my Audible. But yeah, send me a message, and I will definitely give you a list. Okay. So, Kevin, you're gonna help Andrew with the 685. Cool. So where am I at here? I got 2 minutes. Did I miss anything else? Let's just see if there's. Okay, so we got that one. Let's see, Jean, you're going through the process that you went through to get the name out there, but it's hard. You're not depending. And you know what, John, it is hard. In fact, I just found out today in January, I'm going to be speaking at Imaging USA in Atlanta. And I'm going to be talking about personal branding and basically how you build a brand and that. So certainly I don't, well, actually, pause. I can tell you for sure that talk won't be recorded, but after that talk, I will be able to produce some videos about that. Bottom line, John, is it's it's a big hill climb. It's a very, very big, steep hill climb. So you just got to keep climbing. You got to keep plugging, keep working on getting the name out there, keep making connections, and you'll get there. I mean, it's not something that happens overnight. Obviously, we'd all like to have a shortcut, but there are no shortcuts. So more Joe anecdotes. Yeah, there's lots of Joe anecdotes along the way. All right, gang. So listen, did I get my last question on my list? Let me just make sure I got the last one on the list. I did. So I am officially caught up, and I'm not going to lie. I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed because I got to get up super early tomorrow morning. I'm headed to New York. So again, I hope that I get to meet a lot of you at Photo Plus. If you can't make it to Photo Plus, make sure that you are following me on Instagram. And if you don't follow me on Instagram, hey, come on, please follow me on Instagram, all right? I will be updating my Instagram story all day, every day for the next 4 days while I'm in New York. So, also, when I left this out, I talk about practicing and how I was getting set up. So here's the end of the talk that I did in the beginning of the show, right? I left out an important part. Photo Plus starts on Thursday. I'm going to New York tomorrow. Why am I going to New York tomorrow? Because tomorrow is the day that they're setting up the show, and tomorrow at 2 o'clock, I have a rehearsal. Now, it's nothing super formal, but at 2 o'clock, the Olympus stage will be mine in the chaos of what will be Photo Plus being built so that I can run through my shots, and we do sound checks and we get the stage lighting set up and all that stuff. But basically, we will, even in this case, after I've already done my prep for my shots, we will go through a rehearsal to make sure that when the show starts, everything runs smoothly, everybody knows what they're doing at the right times, et cetera, et cetera. So again, that preparation, it's key. But make sure you're following me on Instagram. You'll see lots of updated stories. I would also encourage you to follow on Instagram, Get Olympus. Even if you're not an Olympus user, if you're interested in stuff I'm going to be doing, Olympus will be posting lots from the show on the at Get Olympus Instagram story. So you'll be able to catch some of the stuff that I'm doing there and some of the stuff that's happening. But in the meantime, gang, you all need to get out, do some shooting. I hope you're keeping up. If you're staying here for 90 minutes a week, or if you're watching this after the fact, that's 180 minutes of camera time before next week. All right? So, gang, as always, thank you so much for spending a Tuesday night with me this week. Have a great week. Remember these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.